I never expected my attempt to escape heartbreak would lead me straight into another's arms that autumn evening in San Jose while managing the tech charity gala's registration desk. I was doing what I did best, hiding behind volunteer work to avoid dealing with my emotions. Your name, tag ma'am, I said mechanically, barely looking up from my laptop. 3 months post. Breakup from Sarah, and I still couldn't shake the hollow feeling in my chest. The charity gala, hosted by Silicon Valley's finest, was my latest distraction. The grand ballroom buzzed with the usual tech elite crowd, entrepreneurs and casual blazers, venture capitalists, pretending to care about social causes, and nonprofit workers desperately networking. I'd seen it all before, but something felt different tonight. That's when I noticed her tall, athletic build with rich brown hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She wore a slightly ill-fitting blazer that had seen better days, but carried herself with unmistakable military precision. What caused my attention wasn't her appearance, it was her actions. While others clustered around the influential speakers, she quietly helped an elderly gentleman who had dropped his cane. There was something genuine in her movements, kindness that seemed out of place among the artificial networking smiles. Jamie, we need more name tags at station 3. My co-volunteer interrupted my thoughts. I grabbed a stack and headed over my heels, clicking against the marble floor as I rounded the dessert table. I nearly collided with her. The woman. I'd been watching. Sorry, she said, stepping back quickly. Her green eyes meeting mine. There was something haunting in them, a depth that made my breath catch. No, entirely my fault, I managed. Noticing how she discreetly pocketed a dinner roll, the gesture was smooth, practice someone used to making resources last. I'm Michaela, she offered unexpectedly, her voice carrying a slight southern lilt. Jamie Parker, I replied, surprised by my racing heart. Are you here for the coding initiative presentation? A flash of something embarrassment, pride crossed her face. Just checking out the opportunities, she said vaguely, but I caught her glancing at the buffet again. Before I could respond, she was called away by the elderly man she'd helped earlier. I watched her go, noticing how she expertly navigated the crowd while maintaining perfect posture. Military background, I was certain now. Throughout the evening, I found my eyes drawn to her. Repeatedly, she moved through the gala like a ghost present, but somehow separate from the champagne-sipping crowd. When she thought no one was looking, I saw her slip a few more dinner rolls into her blazer pockets. The realization hit me slowly. She wasn't here for networking or tech opportunities. She was here for the food, yet instead of merely taking care of herself, she spent the evening helping others, assisting elderly attendees, picking up dropped napkins, holding doors open. As the event wound down, I searched for her, but she had vanished, standing there among the half-empty glasses and discarded name tags. I felt an inexplicable sense of loss. I hadn't felt such an immediate connection to someone since Sarah later. That night, as I drove home to my empty apartment, her green eyes haunted my thoughts. There was a story there, one I desperately wanted to know. Little did I realize this was just the beginning of a journey that would change both our lives forever. I couldn't get Michaela out of my head the next morning. Instead of my usual coding tutorials, I found myself scrolling through veteran support groups in San Jose. Call it instinct or obsession, but I knew I had to find her again. My chance came sooner than expected. A week after the gala, while dropping off leftover pastries at the downtown shelter, where I sometimes volunteered, I spotted that familiar brunette ponytail. She was helping organize donations, still carrying herself with that military bearing that had first caught my eye. Fancy meeting you here, I said, trying to sound casual, while my heart hammered against my ribs. Michaela turned, surprise briefly flickering across her face before her features settled into careful neutrality. A coffee shop volunteer, she said, then corrected herself. Jamie, right, tech charity gala, actually. I smiled, though. I do plenty of coffee shop volunteering, too. I set down my box of pastries, noticing how her eyes tracked the movement. Would you like to grab some real coffee? There's a decent place around the corner. She hesitated, pride wearing with something else in her expression. I don't need charity good because I'm not offering any. I'm offering coffee and conversation about our coding boot. Camp scholarship program, the words tumbled out before I could second guess them. We did have scholarships available, and she clearly had the discipline for it over coffee, which I insisted on buying despite her protests. Michaela's story emerged. In careful fragments, Marine Corps veteran, 8 years of service. 2 tours after discharge, a combination of PTSD and a tough economy had left her struggling. She'd been sleeping in shelters for the past 3 months. I know some coding, she admitted, rapping. Her hands around the warm mug, taught myself basic stuff while deployed, helps keep the mind occupied. The boot camp includes housing. I said carefully, watching her expression. Full scholarship covers everything: meals, materials, even a small stipend. And what's the catch? Her green eyes met mine, challenging. No catch, just intense work and dedication. It's a 3-month program designed to get women into tech. I pulled out my tablet, showing her the curriculum. The next cohort starts in 2 weeks. She studied the screen, and I studied her up close. I noticed the faint scar near her temple, the way she positioned herself to always face the door, little things that spoke of past battles. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, suddenly looking at being nice to me. The question caught me off guard. Why was I doing this? Because I couldn't stop thinking about her. Because something in those haunted green eyes called to me. Because everyone deserves a chance, I said instead, and you've got the skills and discipline to succeed. I don't want your pity. Trust me, pity's the last thing I'm feeling right now, I replied, then felt my cheeks heat as I realized how that sounded. A ghost of a smile touched her lips, the first I'd seen. I'll think about it. We talked for another hour about coding, about her time in the Marines, though she kept details vague, about my volunteer work. By the time we finished our coffee, something had shifted between us. The application deadline's Friday, I said as we stood to leave. Here's my card. Call me if you have questions. She took the card, her fingers brushing mine. Thanks for the coffee, Jamie. I watched her walk away, straight-backed and proud. Despite everything, my phone buzzed. Another message from Sarah that I'd been ignoring for the first time in months. I didn't feel the usual pang of heartache. Instead, I found myself hoping Michaela would call. She didn't call that day or the next. By Thursday, I'd nearly given up hope. Then Friday morning, just hours before the deadline, my phone lit up with an unknown number about that boot camp. Michaela's voice said, "I'm in the boot camp. Housing turned out to be a converted Victorian in downtown San Jose, its faded elegance somehow fitting for a program aimed at transformation. I helped Michaela move, in which consisted of exactly one military duffel bag and a worn laptop bag. The sight made my throat tight. Home, sweet home, she said, dryly surveying the small but clean room she'd share with another student. Her few possessions took up barely half a drawer in the provided dresser. "I brought you something," I said, pulling out a welcome package. I'd assembled new coding books, a decent laptop, technically a program loaner, and some basics, I thought. She might need. Her face went carefully blank. "Jamie, I told you it's program equipment." I cut in smoothly. "Standard issue. The books are from the curriculum list." A little white lie, but I'd seen how she devoured technical documentation during our coffee meets over the past week. She gave me a look that said she wasn't fooled, but accepted the package with surprise. Rising grace, thank you, as program coordinator. I had legitimate reasons to be around the house, but I found myself inventing more evening study sessions stretched into late-night debugging marathons. Michaela took to coding like she'd been born for it, her military precision translating perfectly to the structured world of programming. "This variable's killing me," she muttered one night. 2 weeks into the program, we were alone in the common room. Other students long since gone to bed. The soft glow of her laptop screen highlighted the sharp angles of her face. I leaned over her shoulder, pointing at the screen. "Try using a different loop structure here." The scent of her shampoo, something clean and minimal, made it hard to focus. Our hands brushed as she adjusted her code, and I felt that now familiar spark of electricity between us. Michaela was different at night, softer somehow, the rigid military bearing would slip just slightly, revealing glimpses of the woman beneath. She told me stories about growing up in Georgia, about the stray dogs she'd befriended on base, overseas, never were. Stories, though, those remain locked away. Got it? She grinned as her code finally compiled. Our faces were too close for a moment, I thought, but then someone's door creaked upstairs and we both pulled back, days blurred together in a cascade of coding sessions. Quick lunch breaks and lingering glances. I caught her watching me sometimes when she thought I wasn't looking the way her eyes followed my movements, made my skin tingle. One evening, coffee to our usual study session, I accidentally brushed against her, reaching for a whiteboard marker. Her sharp intake of breath matched my own, and for a heartbeat we stood, frozen energy crackling between us. Sorry, I murmured, not moving away. Don't be, she whispered back, her green eyes darkening the moment stretched taut with possibility. Then my phone chimed, a text from Sarah, still trying to explain after all these months. The spell broke. Michaela returned to her keyboard, shoulders tense. I silenced my phone, cursing its timing, but something had shifted. The careful distance we'd maintained began to crack during code reviews. She'd sit closer than necessary. Our conversations wandered beyond programming into personal territory. She started joining me for morning coffee before classes, our knees touching under small coffee tables. One morning, I arrived to find her already at our usual spot, 2 steaming cups waiting. Thought I'd beat you to it for once, she said, pushing my favorite drink toward me. The gesture, small but significant, made my heart flutter looking at her across that table, rain streaming down the cafe windows. I realized I was in serious trouble. I wasn't just attracted to Michaela. I was falling for her, and judging by the way she looked back at me, warm and unguarded in the soft morning light, I wasn't falling. Alone, thanks, I said, wrapping my hands around the warm cup, our fingers brushing this time. Neither of us pulled away the first time I witnessed one of Michaela's PTSD episodes. It shattered my heart. We were reviewing code in the common room when a car backfired outside. In an instant, she transformed, dropping to the floor, eyes wild, breathing ragged. Michaela, I said softly, remembering my training from volunteer work. You're insane. Jose, you're safe. I kept my distance, speaking in calm, measured tones until recognition flickered in her eyes. Damn, she whispered, pressing her palms against the hardwood floor. I thought I was past this. Embarrassment colored her cheeks as she pulled herself up, military bearing reasserting itself like armor. Don't, I said, catching her wrist as she tried to leave. Stay. She did, though it clearly cost her something. We sat in silence until her breathing steadied, my thumb tracing unconscious circles on her wrist. Finally she spoke, voice rough. It was a market. In Kandahar, the explosion. I couldn't save them all. I didn't offer platitudes or empty comfort. Instead, I shared my own demons, panic attacks after Sarah's betrayal, the fear of letting anyone close. Again, vulnerability for vulnerability after that night. Something deeper grew between us. She started joining me for dinner prep in the house's kitchen, our bodies moving in comfortable synchronization. I learned to read the tension in her shoulders that signaled approaching anxiety, and she learned when to pull me out of my overthinking spirals. One evening, debugging a particularly stubborn piece of code, the rain outside turned torrential. Thunder rolled across the sky, but Michaela seemed unusually calm. I like storms, she explained, catching my questioning look. They're honest, no pretense, just raw power. She stood by the window, lightning illuminating her profile. Like you, me. I moved closer, drawn by the intensity in her voice. You never pretend, even when you're hurting. She turned to face me, and the air between us changed, charged like the storm outside. Jamie, my name on her lips, was different. This time softer, almost a question. We'd been dancing around this moment for weeks, both afraid to shatter the delicate balance we'd found. Lightning flashed again, and in that brief illumination, I saw everything she'd been holding back: desire, fear, hope, without thinking. I closed the distance between us. Our first kiss tasted like coffee and rain, gentle at first, then deepening with Months of unspoken longing, she pulled back first, resting her forehead against mine. We shouldn't, she whispered, but her hands stayed at my waist. Why not? I'm broken, Jamie. The nightmares, the flashbacks, you deserve better. I deserve real, I countered, threading my fingers through her hair, and you're the most real thing I found in years. The next kiss was hers, fierce and certain, backing me against the window as thunder crashed overhead when we finally parted, both breathless, her usual military. Precision had cracked, revealing something wild and beautiful underneath. The moment was broken by footsteps on the stairs. We separated smoothly, returning to our laptops as other students filtered in for the evening study session, but everything had changed that night. Lying in my bed across town, my phone lit up with a text from her. Thank you for seeing me, all of me. I touched my lips, still feeling the phantom pressure of her kiss, and typed back, thank you for letting me the next morning. I found her already at our usual coffee spot, an extra splash of confidence in her smile as I slid into my seat. Our knees touched under the table, intentional. This time outside, the storm had cleared, leaving everything washed clean in new sleep. Well, she asked, pushing my coffee toward me. Better than I have in months, I answered, honestly watching. Dawn break across her face. Life has a cruel sense of timing. Just as Michaela and I were finding our rhythm, Sarah decided to materialize like an unwanted ghost from my past. She caught me outside the boot camp house one morning, leaning against her sleek Tesla with that familiar apologetic smile. Jamie, she called out, stopping me mid-stride. You've been ignoring my messages. See you. I have nothing to say to you, I replied, grateful. Michaela was already inside, preparing for her morning class. 3 months of silence, and now you want to talk. I made a mistake, Sarah said, stepping closer to that thing with Rebecca. It didn't mean anything. Her expensive perfume, once so alluring, now felt cloying. I miss you. Before I could respond, the boot camp door opened. Michaela emerged, probably looking for me. She froze, taking in the scene, her face sliding into that careful blank expression I'd come to dread. I should get to class, she said, stiffly turning back. Inside, Michaela waited, but she was already gone, leaving me with the last person I wanted to see. Sarah raised an eyebrow. New student, none of your business. I snapped then, took a deep breath. Look, whatever you came here to say, save it. We're done. We're done the moment you chose her. At least let me buy you lunch. Sarah pressed to explain properly. I almost refused, but something stopped me. Maybe I needed this proper closure, a chance to say everything I'd bottled up. Fine, one lunch. That decision haunted me through the morning classes. Michaela was conspicuously absent from our usual coffee break, and her seat in the common area remained empty during study sessions. When I returned from lunch with Sarah, an awkward affair where she tried to rationalize her cheating while I'd finally told her exactly how much she'd hurt me. I found Kayla in the coding lab, shoulders rigid as she attacked her keyboard. Hey, I said softly. Hey, she replied, not looking up. How is lunch necessary? I answered. Honestly, it helped me realize something, that you still have feelings for her. The bitterness in her voice made my chest ache that I don't. I moved closer, lowering my voice. That what I feel for you is completely different, real. She continued typing, but her keystroke lost their angry force. I saw how she looked at you, like she knows every part of you. She knows who I was. I corrected, not who I am now, not who I want to be. Finally, Michaela turned, her green eyes searching mine. And who's that someone? Worthy of trust, someone who doesn't run when things get complicated. I reached for her hand, relieved when she didn't pull away. Someone who's falling for a stubborn Marine who thinks too much. A ghost of a smile touched her lips, but uncertainty lingered. I don't do well with complications when things get messy. People get hurt. I'm already hurt, I said softly, but you make me feel like healing is possible. The lab door opened, other students filing in for afternoon sessions. Michaela withdrew her hand, but something had shifted in her expression that evening. I found a note slipped under my office door roof, 8 o'clock p. I found her there at exactly 8, silhouetted against the San Jose skyline. She spoke without turning. I'm not good at this relationship's trust. My last one ended when I couldn't stop screaming in my sleep. I'm not asking for perfect, I said, moving to stand beside her. I'm just asking for real. She turned then, and the vulnerability in her eyes took my breath away. Real is messy, real is worth it. I reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. This time, when we kissed, it felt like a promise. Later, as we lay on the blanket she'd brought, watching stars compete with city lights, she murmured, "No more lunch dates with exes." I laughed, pulling her closer. No more doubting what I want. But as I felt her relax against me, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were tempting fate. In my experience, happiness this pure usually came with a price tag. I just hoped we were strong enough to pay it. The misunderstanding started with a casual photo Sarah and me at that closure lunch, snapped by a mutual friend who happened to be at the restaurant. The friend posted it online with the caption, "Reunited," because people never think about the damage their thoughtless actions can cause. Michaela saw it during her morning code review. By the time I arrived at the boot camp house, she was gone. Her room was empty, bed, military neat, as if she'd never been there. Only her laptop remained screen, still showing the damning photo. I muttered frantically, dialing her number straight to voice. "Smell Michaela, please. Call me. It's not what you think." That lunch was goodbye. Nothing more. Hours passed. I checked every shelter in downtown San Jose, then expanded my search. The temperature was dropping and rain threatened. Each empty shelter bed felt like a personal accusation. She came by earlier. A volunteer at St. James told me didn't stay. Said something about going back to where things made sense. Where things made sense, the gala where we first met. I drove through the worsening rain, hands tight on the steering wheel, praying I was right. The grand ballroom was dark, hosting no events that night, but I spotted a figure huddled in the building's entrance alcove. Michaela sat with her back against the wall, duffel bag beside her, looking simultaneously fierce and lost. "You're going to catch pneumonia," I said, approaching slowly. "Better than catching feelings," she replied, but there was no bite in her words. "Just exhaustion." I slid down the wall beside her, not caring about my wet clothes. "The photo was from that goodbye lunch." "Nothing more, I know," she said quietly. "I figured it out about an hour ago. Saw the rest of the photos, the ones where you're clearly arguing. Then why are you still here?" She laughed, a hollow sound. "Because running is what I do best. Been doing it since Kandahar. Run before they leave, before they die, before they realize how broken you are." "You're not broken." I insisted. "You're healing. We both are." I saw that photo and just panicked. All I could think was, of course, she'd choose the successful ex over the homeless vet with PTSD. "I choose the woman who helps strangers, even when she has nothing," I said firmly. "Who codes until midnight because she refuses to give up. Who kisses me like I'm something precious." Rain dripped from the alcove's edge, creating a curtain between us and the world. Michaela watched it fall, her profile sharp in the streetlight. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "Be vulnerable. Let someone, and every instinct says run, so we do it together, slowly." I reached for her hand in the darkness. "But first, can we get out of this rain?" She let me help her up, but held back when I tried to lead her to my car. "I need to know something first. Are you sure about this about me? Because I can't handle being someone's experiment or charity case." I answered by kissing her, rain cold lip warming under mine when we parted. I kept hold of her face, making sure she met my eyes. I've never been more sure of anything. The drive back to the boot camp house was quiet, but her hand stayed in mine. As we climbed the stairs, both dripping wet, she suddenly stopped. "I'm sorry I ran. I'm sorry. I gave you reason to doubt." I countered, "No more unspoken fears." "Okay. We talked things through." She nodded, then surprised me with a small smile. "Does this talking thing involve coffee?" "Always," I laughed, relief making me lightheaded. "But first dry clothes." Later, over steaming mugs in the empty common room, we began the slow process of dismantling our walls brick by careful brick. Outside, the rain continued to fall, but inside we were building something storm-proof. "Next time," I said, "run to me, not away." She squeezed my hand. Promise trust comes in small steps. I've learned from Michaela. It started with nightmares instead of hiding them. She began texting me during those dark hours. When sleep proved elusive, I'd slip into the boot camp house with contraband coffee, and we'd talk until dawn painted the sky. One such night, curled together on the common room couch, she finally told me about Kahar. We were escorting a supply convoy. She began, voice distance started like any other day sun too. Bright air too dry, then the first IED hit her fingers, tightened around her coffee mug, lost 3 good people in the initial blast, 2 more in the firefight after. I stayed silent, giving her space to unfold the story at her own pace. Jenny Lieutenant Peterson, she was right beside me when the second explosion hit. 1 minute we were returning fire. The next she swallowed hard sometimes. I still smell the burning metal. Is that what triggers the episodes? I asked gently. Sometimes, other times, it's random things, a car door slamming, the wrong kind of silence. She sat down, her mug hands trembling slightly. The hardest part isn't the memories, it's feeling like I shouldn't have survived when they didn't. I took her hands in mine, warming them between my palms. Survivor guilt is a heavy burden to carry alone. Yeah, well, she attempted a smile. Sharing isn't exactly taught in Marine training. What about now? I asked, what are you learning? She looked at me, then really looked at me. That maybe some burdens are meant to be shared. Dawn was breaking by the time I opened up about my own demons. How? Sarah's betrayal had shattered not just my heart, but my sense of self-worth. How? I'd thrown myself into volunteer work to avoid dealing with the pain hiding in plain sight. Michaela nodded. I get that we quite the pair. I laughed softly, both running from our past. Maybe it's time to stop running. She shifted closer, her warmth seeping into my side. Maybe it's time to start building something. Knew the holiday season was approaching, and downtown San Jose sparkled with lights. One evening, walking back from a coding session, snowflakes began to fall, a rare occurrence in the Bay Area. Look, I pointed upward, delighting in the way the lights caught the falling snow. When I looked back at Michaela, her expression took my breath away. Beautiful, she said, but she wasn't looking at the snow under the glow of holiday lights with snowflakes melting in her hair. She kissed me, not our usual careful kisses, but something deeper, more certain. When we parted, her eyes held a new warmth. I think I'm falling in love with you. She whispered the words, visible in the cold air between us. My heart soared. Think Marine precision. She smiled. Never state anything without absolute certainty. And what would make you certain? She took my hand, entwining our fingers. Time. Chess more mornings with coffee, and code more nights, talking until dawn. Her voice softened. More moments like this. I can work with that, I said, pulling her close again, because I'm already certain about you. The snow continued to fall, dusting our shoulders with white. But neither of us moved to seek shelter. Some moments are worth getting cold for later that night in the quiet of her room. She showed me her medals, carefully wrapped in cloth and tucked away in her duff. Each one came with a story, some funny, some heartbreaking. She never shared them with anyone else. Why me? I asked as she folded them away again. Because you see, me, she answered simply. Not the veteran, not the homeless woman, not the broken soldier. Just me. I pulled her into bed, wrapping her in warmth. Promises always. That night when the nightmares came, she didn't face them alone. And in the morning, watching her sleep peacefully, for once I realized something profound. We were healing each other, one shared burden at a time. As the boot camp entered its final month, Michaela's talent couldn't be ignored. Her coding projects consistently tau the class, combining military precision with creative problem solving. When Google's recruiter reached out about an internship interview, it felt inevitable. You're ready for this, I assured her, watching her pace our favorite coffee shop. She traded her worn clothes for a crisp blazer I'd helped her choose, but her hands still fidgeted with nervous energy. What if they ask about the gap in my employment? She worried, adjusting her collar for the 100th time, or why a veteran applying for an entry-level position. I caught her hands, stilling them. Then you tell them the truth, that you've overcome more challenges than most people face in a lifetime. And you're still coding circles around everyone else. Her green eyes soften. How do you always know exactly what to say? Must be love. I smiled, straightening her blazer now. Go show them what a Marine coder can do. The interview was at Google's San Jose office. All glass and modern angles, I waited in the lobby, pretending to work on my laptop, while actually counting minutes when Michaela emerged 2 hours later. Her face was unreadable while I asked, heart pounding, a slow smile spread across her face. They want me to come back tomorrow for the technical interview. I barely waited until we were outside. Before pulling her into a kiss, I knew it. We need to celebrate. We ended up at an upscale restaurant, my treat, despite her protests over wine and pasta. She recounted every detail of the interview, her eyes bright with excitement. The interviewer was a veteran too, she said, gesturing with her fork. Air Force. We talked about how military experience translates to tech. He actually got it, Watching her talk, all animation and confidence, I fell in love all over again. This was a different Michaela from the guarded woman I'd met at the Gallet, still strong, but softer around the edges, more willing to hope what she asked, catching me staring, just thinking about how far we've come. Her hand found mine across the table. We make a good team, the best, I agreed, then raised my glass to new beginnings. The evening was perfect: dinner, a walk through downtown's holiday lights, and finally back to my apartment. We'd been spending more nights there lately, away from the boot camp houses. Watchful eyes stay, I whispered as we crossed a threshold, though she already had a drawer of clothes here. Always, she replied, and then words became unnecessary. They spent the night exploring their deep connection, expressing their love in the most intimate way. Morning found us tangled in sheets, sunlight painting patterns across bare skin. Michaela traced lazy circles on my shoulder, unusually contemplative. What's on your mind? I asked, pressing a kiss to her collarbone. If I get this job, she hesitated. Would you help me look for an apartment? I propped myself up on an elbow. You could stay here. Jamie, her voice held warning. That's a big step. We practically live together already, I pointed out, and I love waking up with you. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, what if I mess it up? What if the nightmares get worse, or I can't handle the pressure? Then we handle it together. I cued her face, making sure she met my eyes. I'm not asking because it's convenient. I'm asking because I want to build a life with you. A life, she repeated softly, testing the words. That sounds nice. Is that a yes? Instead of answering, she pulled me down for a kiss that held all the promise of tomorrow. When we finally parted, her smile was radiant. Yes, she whispered against my lips, but you're helping me move my massive collection of possessions. I laughed, heart overflowing, all one duffel bag of it. Hey, I own books now and a decent laptop. I'm practically a tech mogul. As we lay there, planning our future, I marveled at how love sometimes sneaks up on you, not in grand gestures or dramatic moments, but in quiet mornings and shared laughter in the gentle way. Healing happens when you're not looking. They say never really know someone until you meet their parents. I was about to learn just how true that was when my mother's caller ID lit up my phone one ordinary Tuesday morning. Jamie, darling, her voice dripped with forced casualness, care to explain why. Mrs. Henderson saw you kissing a woman outside that coffee shop near your office. My stomach dropped. I've been so careful, but of course someone from my parents' country club circle would spot us. Mom, I can explain, please. She cut in, because last I checked you were taking a break from dating after that unfortunate business with Sarah. I looked across my desk at Michaela, who was reviewing code for her final project. She glanced up, concerned, crossing her face at my expression. Actually, Mom, I've been meaning to tell you, I'm seeing someone. Her name is Michaela, and she's a homeless veteran. The ice in her voice could have frozen San Jose Bay. Yes, Margaret Henderson was quite thorough in her description. Jamie, what are you thinking? I'm thinking I'm in love, I said, firmly, watching Michaela's eyes widen at my words. And I'd like you to meet her. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, my mother spoke. Your father and I are coming to dinner tonight. Before I could protest she hung up. I stared at my phone in horror. That bad, Michaela asked quietly worse. I explained the situation. You don't have to come. I can handle them alone, she stood. Military bearing, kicking in Marines, don't retreat from battle. What time should? I be there. The dinner was exactly as excruciating as I'd feared. My parents arrived at my apartment precisely at 700 armed with disapproving looks and a bottle of obscenely expensive wine, so Michaela, my mother, began deliberately mispronouncing the name Micha. I corrected. What exactly are your intentions with our daughter? Michaela sat down her fork meeting. My mother's gazed steadily. I intend to love her, support her, build a life with her on what my father scoffed a veteran's pension. Actually, I intervened. Michaela's about to start at Google. She's one of the top coders in the boot camp. How progressive. My mother managed sipping her wine. In your condition? Jamie mentioned something about trauma. I saw. Michaela's jaw tightened, but her voice remained calm. PTSD, which I manage with therapy and medication. Would you like to know about the medals I earned? Serving our country, or should we skip straight to more invasive questions? My father's face. Read now. See here. No, you see. I cut in, years of pent-up frustration bursting forth. Michaela is the best thing that's ever happened to me. She's brave, brilliant, and more genuine than anyone in your social circle. If you can't accept that, then you don't accept me, Jamie, my mother gasped. You can't be serious. What about your position in society, your future? My future is with her. I reached for Michaela's hand. And my position in society, I'd rather stand with someone who serves others than sit in judgment of them. The silence that followed was broken only by the scrape of my mother's chair as she stood. I see we've wasted our evening, Charles. We're leaving. My father paused at the door. You're making a mistake, Jamie. The only mistake was letting your prejudices dictate my life for so long after they left. Michaela pulled me close. You didn't have to do that, yes? I did. I buried my face in her neck, breathing in her familiar scent. You're my family now. They might come around, she offered, but we both knew it was unlikely. Later that night, as we lay in bed, Michaela grew quiet. Maybe they're right. Your life would be easier without. I silenced her with a kiss. My life is better with you, and it, period, even if it means losing them. You can't lose something that was never really yours. I said softly. They loved their idea of me, not who I actually am. She held me tighter, and I felt her tears dampen my shoulder. I love who you actually are, every stubborn, beautiful part. Good. I whispered, because you're stuck with me now. Outside San Jose sparkled under a winter sky, indifferent to the small dramas playing out beneath it, but in our warm bubble of defiant love, nothing else mattered. We had chosen each other. Everything else was just background noise. The email arrived on a Thursday morning. Google's official offer letter for Michaela. I found her staring at her laptop screen, hands trembling slightly. Well, I prompted, setting down our morning coffee. 6 figures, she whispered, still in shock, plus benefit stock options. Jamie, this is real. I wrapped my arms around her from behind, resting my chin on her shoulder to read the details. Of course, it's real. You earned this. She turned in my arms, eyes bright with unshed tears. A year ago, I was sleeping in shelters. Now you're a badass software engineer who's about to take Silicon Valley by storm. I kissed her softly, ready to go apartment hunting. House hunting, as it turned out, was both exciting and terrifying. San Jose's real estate market was brutal, but Michaela attacked it with the same precision she brought to coding. Too dark, she'd say in one place, examine the windows with a tactical eye. Poor sightlines, too exposed at another, frowning at the ground floor location. I started to see the spaces through her eyes, not just as homes, but as secure locations, places where hypervigilance could relax into comfort. The perfect place found. U.S. on a rainy Sunday, a 3rd-floor corner unit in a secure building with high ceilings and windows that caught the morning light. The moment we walked in, Michaela's shoulders relaxed. This one, she said. Simply, I wandered through the rooms, imagining our life here, my books mingling with her growing collection, a proper desk setup for late-night coding sessions, a kitchen where we could cook together instead of surviving on takeout. The bedroom has a great view, the realtor pointed out. Michaela was already checking the emergency exits and sight lines, but I saw her smile at the cityscape visible through the windows. What do you think she asked later as we sat in our favorite coffee shop discussing in numbers? I think it's perfect. I squeezed her hand, but are you sure you want to do this together? It's a big commitment. She looked at me with those green eyes that still made my heart skip. I've never been more sure of anything. The paperwork was a blur of signatures and dates. Before we knew it, we were standing in our empty apartment, surrounded by boxes, mostly mine though. Michaela's possessions had grown beyond that single duffel bag. Welcome home, I whispered, pulling her close. She responded by pressing me against the nearest wall, her kiss fierce and claiming her home that night. They christened their new space with passionate love, marking every room as their own. The next few weeks were a chaos of unpacking and settling, and Michaela's military precision proved invaluable in organizing our shared space. Everything had its place, but somehow it never felt rigid. You kept it, I said one evening, finding my volunteer coordinator badge from the tech gala displayed on our bookshelf. Of course, she wrapped her arms around my waist from behind. It's where our story began. Small moments kept catching me off guard, finding her combat boots next to my heels by the door, her protein bars mixing with my organic snacks in the pantry, 2 toothbrushes and a shared holder. The nightmares didn't stop completely, but now when they came, we had a routine. I'd make tea while she did her breathing exercises, then we'd curl up on our balcony, watching the city lights until dawn. One such morning, as the sun painted San Jose in gold, Michaela turned to me with an unexpected question. Remember how you said the boot camp changed your life? I nodded, curious where this was going. What if we could do that for others? Create a program specifically for veterans transitioning into tech. The idea took root immediately. We could partner with local shelters, offer housing support, use my military connections for outreach. She was already reaching for her laptop, eyes bright with purpose. Look at us, I laughed, planning to change the world before breakfast. She paused her typing to pull me in for a kiss. You already changed my world. Seems only fair to pass it on. Later that day, watching her on a video call with Google's diversity team, pitching our veteran program idea with passionate precision, I felt my heart swell with pride and love. This was us building something bigger than ourselves, turning our shared wounds into stepping stones for others' home. I was learning wasn't just a place with perfect sight lines and secure exits. It was wherever we face the future together, one line of code at a time. 1 year can change everything. Standing in the same grand ballroom where I first met Michaela, I could hardly believe how far we'd come. Tonight's Tech Charity Gala wasn't just another networking event. It was the launch of our Veterans Code initiative. Ready for your speech? I asked, adjusting Michaela's tie. She wore her dress blues, metals gleaming under the chandeliers. Gone was the woman who'd once pocketed dinner rolls. Here in her place stood a confident tech leader who'd just been promoted to senior engineer. Ready as I'll ever be. She smiled, then frowned at something over my shoulder. Is that I turned to see my parents entering the ballroom. They hadn't spoken to me since that disastrous dinner, though my mother still sent pointed holiday cards addressed only to me. I invited them. I had admitted, figured they should see what their daughter and her homeless veteran built together before Michaela could respond. The program director called her to the stage. I watched with pride as she commanded the room's attention, telling our story with characteristic precision and unexpected humor. A year ago, I stood in this room, wondering where my next meal would come from. She began today. I'm here to announce a program that will ensure no veteran has to make that choice again. The initiative was ambitious, a full scholarship coding boot camp specifically for veterans, complete with housing support and mental health resources. Google had matched our initial funding, and other tech giants were following suit. I noticed my parents in the audience, their expressions shifting from rigid politeness to genuine interest as Michaela outlined the program's success metrics. My father actually nodded when she discussed the return on investment in veteran education. After the presentation during the mingling portion, Michaela disappeared briefly. I was answering questions about volunteer opportunities when she returned looking oddly nervous. Can I borrow you for a minute? She asked, taking my hand. There's something I need to show you. She led me to the exact spot where we'd first collided that fateful night. The room had cleared somewhat, but there was still a decent crowd. Jamie, she began, her voice carrying that same southern lilt that had first caught my attention. A year ago, you saw me when I was invisible. You offered help when I couldn't ask for it. You loved me when I didn't love myself. My heart started racing as she dropped to one knee, producing a small box. I had this whole speech planned, she continued, voice shaking slightly about battle strategies and secure positions, but standing here all I can think is I want to spend the rest of my life making you as happy as you've made me. The ring was simple, elegant, a sapphire that matched my eyes well. You marry me through my tears. I saw my parents watching from across the room. My mother's hand was pressed to her mouth, my father's arm around her shoulders. Yes, I managed pulling Michaela to her feet 1,000 times. Yes, the room erupted in applause as we kissed. When we finally parted, I was surprised to find my parents approaching. That was quite a presentation, my father said gruffly. Then, to my shock, he extended his hand to Michaela. Welcome to the family. My mother dabbed at her eyes. The ring is lovely, dear, and perhaps we could do lunch next week, all of us later that night in our apartment. Michaela and I slow danced on our balcony. The city sparkled below, full of promise. You know, she mused when I first came to San Jose. I thought I was just passing through another city, another shelter, and now. I know I was finding my way home. She pulled back to meet my eyes to you. I traced the scar near her temple, this mark of her past that was part of our story. Think we can handle a military precision? Wedding, please, she smirked. That's what spreadsheets are for, as we swayed under the stars. I thought about all the ways love heals us, not in grand gestures or dramatic moments, but in quiet choices to stay, to trust, to build something new from the broken pieces. Sometimes the best stories start with a simple hello. Sometimes they start with stolen dinner rolls, and sometimes, if you're very lucky, they never really end at all.